Hey guys, look who's here. This is Kenzie Lorraine, and she was born on May 4th at 6:51 a.m. and she was 8 pounds even and 20 and a half inches long. Huh, you were. You were. You got the hiccups. So finally on Wednesday, May 4th at 12:30 in the morning, my water broke. I was laying in bed and I was like kind of half asleep but kind of awake enough to feel something going on. And I was just laying there and all of a sudden I felt like a bubble popped. So I laid there. I was like, "Oh, well, that could that be my water? Like, I don't know." So then I got up, went to the bathroom. I didn't even just about to sit down and pull my pants down, and then it was a gush. I, changed my clothes, changed my underwear, put a pad on, and went to the bedroom. And I turned the light on, and I said, "We have an issue." And my husband goes, "What?" And I'm like, "My water just broke." He's like, "Really?" Like, we said it was going to be in the middle of the night. After that, I searched for the folder that had the on-call labor and delivery center number on it. So I called the number. They then paged the on-call midwife, and I gave them all of my information, my phone number. So then she then called me back. I would say about 20 minutes later after my water broke and like after I had called. So she called and asked, what was I feeling? And I said I was having no contractions, but my water did break and it was frequently leaking. She said, "All right, how fast can you get here?" I said, "I can be there in 10, 15 minutes. And then we got in the car and we went to the hospital. By the time we got, I would say, 2 miles down the road, my contractions started. They were coming on pretty fast. I wasn't timing them, but once I got them, I was getting them pretty frequently. I would say they're probably like 2 to 3 minutes apart. So at one point on the way to the hospital, I had said to my husband, I was like, "We need to speed it up because I am not having this baby in the back of the car." So we got to the hospital. And at my hospital, anytime after 8 p.m., you have to go in through the emergency room. So we went to the emergency room. I had to check in. I had the slowest person registering me. Like, she was so monotone. She was just very slow. And, like, as you can tell, I'm in pain. I'm having contractions. So finally, they get me all signed in. They send down a nurse from labor and delivery. So once the labor and delivery nurse came, we walked the very lengthy walk through like the whole back hallways from the emergency room to labor and delivery. And as soon as I went in, I was hoping for room 9. I had room 9 for both my other two kids, which was like the corner room. It was nice because it was a little bigger than the rest of the rooms. It was a corner room. But I was in room 5. As soon as I got to the room, they had me change into a Johnny. I was still like leaking fluid still. I just put the Johnny on. I didn't worry about like the underwear, the mesh underwear or anything like that. It was just going to be more to take off later. So they get me into the bed, they get me hooked up, the contraction monitor and the fetal heartbeat monitor. And, the heart rate was great, it was strong. The contractions were about 2 minutes apart. They weren't that bad. I mean, they were tolerable. Obviously, the longer they went on, the more intense they got. So I was also group B strep positive, so I needed to get an antibiotic. So they wanted to get that in me as soon as possible. So by this time, it was about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. They got the antibiotic in via IV. The weirdest thing ever was they put the blood pressure cuff on my right hand, on my right arm rather, and every time the blood pressure cuff would go off, my arm would get super red, my hand would swell, and it would get super itchy. So like every time that thing went off, I was just like, ugh, like it was really annoying. The midwife didn't know what could cause that. Ooh, bless you. The nurses were so baffled by it, so they kind of just kept on doing it. Around 3 o'clock, the midwife came in and she checked me, and I was 4 centimeters, like very thinned out. Like I was 4 centimeters. I was ready to go. She asked if I wanted an epidural, and I said yes. They were getting pretty intense. So, anesthesia, and they came down, they gave me my epidural, and the nurses and the midwife were baffled because, like, with pain for me, I'm not one to, like, scream or moan or groan or whatever like that. I was just very quiet. I internalized everything. So they were just, any question, they're like, "Oh, yeah, whatever. Like, whatever you need to do." Like, that was my answer, and they were so just like at awe at how I was just handling everything. So after I got my epidural, we were able to sleep for a good couple hours. Like I think I maybe slept like an hour and a half total. Like people coming in and out and the IV and the blood pressure cuff, because every single time that went off, it would wake me up because my hand was just not well. And so eventually they did end up putting the blood pressure cuff on the other hand, which I had the IV in. So they didn't really want to because they didn't want to blow out the IV. But they ended up doing it because it was just more comfortable for me that way. And after I had my epidural, the midwife actually went rested for a little bit. She went to rest up for delivery, so she went and rested up. So about 6:10, she came back. She's like, I don't know, I woke up feeling like I needed to check you. They had shift change at 7 a.m., so that she didn't even have much left of her shift, but she was just like, I just had a feeling like deep inside that I need to check you. So she checked me, and I was 10 centimeters. I was so baffled by that because I thought I was only going to be 7 centimeters. When I had my other daughter, they gave me my epidural, I plateaued. So they ended up giving me Pitocin, which drew out the whole labor process, and it took forever. With Kenzie, not so much. So she comes in, she's like, all right, you're at 10 centimeters, let's push. And I was like, okay, we're having a baby. So the midwife goes and gets like her team, like my nurse that I had the whole time, and the 2 postpartum nurses that were there to help, everything like that. So as soon as they came back, it was go time. I pushed every contraction. So I think I started pushing at like 6:20, and every contraction, like I'd push 3 times and I'd relax, and we'd have conversations. Like I learned about where it's like the doctor and the midwives and all the nurses went to school and who they had for teachers. Like just casually, I'm sitting there, spread eagle, pushing out a baby, and we're just talking about colleges and schools. The midwife is actually my age. She was, a year older than me, but so it was kind of cool just to have like someone that's not like this old doctor who's like, do this, do that, do that. She was kind of mellow. She was real sweet, and the nurses were awesome. Every contraction we'd push 3 times, and I did tear a little bit just for 1 stitch, but pushed for 20 minutes. And she was born at 6:51. Labor was awesome and delivery was awesome. After, she came out, we did skin to skin. That was fantastic. I didn't do that with my other 2. Then I delivered my placenta and after birth, and there was no problem there. 1 push, she sewed me up, and everything was great. And then it was shift change. So then I got a whole new nurse and a whole new doctor who didn't even really know what just happened. After she came out, the doctors, or the midwife rather, and the nurse was like, oh my gosh, she's so pink. She's just like perfect. Were your other 2 blonde? In which they had dark hair, but she's got some pretty blonde hair. They couldn't stop raving about how pink she was and how just perfect she was. After I delivered the placenta, they come and they, press on your belly to try and get your uterus to contract again, and I was clotting a lot. The nurse, like every single time she come in, she'd check me. She's like, are you bleeding still? Can you feel it? I said, yes, I am. I was leaking a lot of blood. At one point, it was just an awful lot. So she called one of the new midwives off from the new shift change in to come in and check me. I was just clotting way too much. So they put a glove on, went in, scooped a whole bunch out by hand, and they gave me Pitocin to try and kick up contractions again, to get my uterus to contract, to come down, and to stop the clotting. They also gave me another shot. I don't remember what it was called. It was a shot for contracting as well. And, some time passed. That whole time flew by so quick. I don't even remember time-wise what was happening. So then another time, the nurse comes in, she checks me, she's like, you're really still clotting a lot. So they call in another midwife. So at this time I have 2 midwives that are coming in and checking on me because my uterus just is not contracting. I'm just losing blood, and it was just not good. So the second midwife comes in and she's like, all right, suit me up. So she gets like suited up for surgery. And I'm like, at this point I'm like freaking out. I'm looking at my husband and I'm like, something's not right. So she seriously was up to her elbow inside of me. She went in and was like pulling out handfuls of blood clots. It was the most excruciating pain that I have ever had. It was worse than like pushing out 3 kids combined. And of course, like as they're, she's up there pulling out blood clots, the nurse is like pressing and pushing in horrible pain, like pushing on my stomach. Like I could feel, she probably felt my spine how much she was pushing down. It was just so painful. And then after that, blood clots out. They're like, hopefully this is it, because if you don't stop losing blood, we're going to have to go into the OR. And we're going to need to put a balloon up there, and we're going to fill it with warm water to get your stomach to contract, or your uterus to contract, rather. Now at this point, I'm freaking out. Like, I just had a baby. I don't want to have to go to the OR or anything like that. They ended up giving me another bag of Pitocin, another round of that shot. And at that point, I was just in so much pain. I was in so much pain that it was making me vomit. I got very nauseous. I threw up for about an hour straight. And of course, after I had Kenzie, they're like, oh, well, you're good. You can eat breakfast. I'm like, great. I'm starving. And so everything that I ate came up. It was intense. Like, that was the worst. So I had severe postpartum hemorrhaging. Luckily, with them pulling them all out, that was the last thing that they needed to do. So then after, I was vomiting, they ended up giving me an anti-nausea medicine and morphine for the pain, just because it was so incredibly painful and intense and invasive, basically. After that, I slept for a little bit. They had taken Kenzie to the nursery to, clean her up and do some testing and all that kind of stuff. I just remember saying to the nurse, like, I'm overstaying my welcome in labor and delivery. Like, you have a baby, you're there for maybe an hour after that, and then you go to postpartum. But I had been there forever. Like, we didn't leave the postpartum room the labor and delivery room until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I had already had her, and she was born at 6:51. So I was in there for a good almost 7 hours. They wouldn't let me go to the postpartum room until I was able to stand up without passing out or anything like that, because I had lost so much blood. So after that, we went to the postpartum room, and it was lunchtime, which was great because I had just threw up everything that I had already eaten. And at that point, I was just so exhausted from everything. Like, I remember going back to the room. My kids didn't come up until like 4:30, so we had time to rest. Like, I took a nap, my husband took a nap. We kept on trying to still feed Kenzie. I had a hard time with her latching. She would only latch when someone else was in the room, like a nurse, because then the nurse had to like help me. She showed me, because I had never nursed before, she showed me what I had to do, what the tips and tricks were. We had lactation come down from the nursery and help me out. It was rough. So she wasn't really getting much because I wasn't really producing much. It took an army to try and get a couple drops out. After that, we rested. She rested. We did skin to skin. We slept like that for a couple of hours. My husband slept for a couple of hours. And, then everybody came to visit. My parents and my son and daughter came and visited, and my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law came. And, it was great. Like, we have Kenzie meet everybody. She's a sleepy baby all the time. But it was good. And overall, like, other than the afterbirth of having her and the delivery, or after delivery of having her, that was kind of traumatic. But for the most part, like, this experience of having her was really, really good. The hospital's great. And, some nurses are hit and miss. There's some nurses that I like better than others. The people that come and check your vitals, there's more that you liked better than others. But overall, it was a great experience. I loved the team that I had for delivering her, and the team that I had afterwards for my whole severe postpartum hemorrhaging episode. Like, they were good too, but the nurses that I had for my delivery were awesome. Like, I wouldn't have asked for anybody else. We came home Friday afternoon. Kenzie was having a hard time nursing, so she wasn't peeing as much as she should have. So they wouldn't let us go until, she had a good feed and she had a wet diaper. So eventually she ended up doing that. We got home, I want to say about 2:30 in the afternoon on Friday. And, we've been home ever since. She's doing awesome. I hope you guys like this journey with me through my pregnancy of my third child. Here she is, Kenzie Lorraine. She's just 8, so she's now snoozing. But, thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to keep doing some postpartum videos, to keep you guys updated. We might do some, special things where, we go somewhere, we go to the zoo, or we go, what her milestones are, stuff like that. I'm going to keep you guys updated. So as always, guys, don't forget to hit the like button down below, the subscribe button as well. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye.